Hello everybody, welcome back to Screwverse, my scale model universe. People of Earth, it's a brand new build today, and this is my Halloween build for 2023. I like to do a Halloween build, it's kind of fun, but this year I'm really doing a Halloween build. I'm doing the Halloween build. This is the kit that's available from Mobius Models. You've all seen it. It is Michael Myers from the John Carpenter movie Halloween, and it's 1/8 scale, and it says it has a lighting kit. I'll talk about the tragedy of the lighting kit in just a second, but the night he came home, that is the thing that still sends chills down my spine. What a great movie. Come on, low budget John Carpenter movie, filmed in my backyard, Pasadena, and obviously starred the great Donald Pleasance and of course Jamie Lee Curtis. Who can forget? What a cast, and who knew that something could really turn into a cult classic, and it did, and of course it spawned all of those sequels. So I thought to myself, it's time to have Michael in my collection. He's always given me chills. I think arguably one of those great movies in terms of how it was executed considering the budget. So for the day, I think it still holds up. And of course, that great moment in the scene where Donald Pleasance in the rain running out of the insane asylum telling the cops he's gone. You know, he's gone from here. It's like, what do you mean he's gone? Where can he go? He can't drive. And of course, Donald Pleasance says he was doing very well last night. And of course, that classic score, you know, the simplicity of it, but the power of it. So here we are. We're going to build Michael. And when I open this box, now I've taken everything out of its plastic and I took a look. And you know, here are your destructions. You've got this classic chiller face, you know, the classic William Shatner mask that has been grossly, bizarrely used and to incredible effect. You've got a very young Jamie Lee Curtis. Look at that. Look how young she is. I mean, come on. That's incredible. And of course, the great Donald Pleasance, who was a consummate actor. So I mean, they got quality. They really did. They got a quality cast. So the movie, as we know, released in 1978. And here we go. And of course, you know, the instructions are relatively simple. The fun thing about this build is you get a little bit of a diorama, and that's what I'm sort of excited about. And you know, there's a few things that we can do here to really age this and give it some punch. And of course, the tragical lighting, well, so-called lighting display, but you know, trust me when I tell you, it's no lighting kit, folks. But I did stick it under I did stick it on a battery, and this is it's a flickering orange light. So we're going to use it. We're just going to do a little more lighting, I think, perhaps, or play with this a little more. But it's worth yanking, you know, clipping this away from the battery pack and starting again. But the bulb is worth it. It does work. But of course, you know, everything on this kit can be completely painted and distressed and looked really awesome. But there's one thing that lets this kit down. One thing. And it's the most important thing. Check it out. It's the sculpt of the face. Now, I just quickly put this together just to take a look at it. And I don't know, guys, what do you think? Is that anything close to that? Not really. Not really. Now, in its defense, you could do a lot with paint, but the problem is that the the mask itself, if you look at, if I go back to this photo of this mask, let me see if I can get this a little, zoom in on this for you, just a little bit. It still freaks me out just looking at that in shadows. But what you'll notice is that it's all about the complexion. Now, in the defense of this sculpt, there are a couple of elements on it that are on the mask. There's this dimple right here, but what you'll notice is the jawline is wrong, and of course the mask did deliberately stick out a lot more from the neck, much more. It was obvious he was wearing a mask, and of course that classic hair. You can't do much with this. Now, perhaps with a little oil paint and stuff like that, but I've got a fix for that. And I've got a plan for this face. Now, it's going to either backfire on me completely, in which case you'll all be laughing at the end of this video, and this thing could definitely end up in the trash, or we'll go, hey, that's pretty cool. So I've challenged myself to try to get to pretty cool. Here's my plan. I'm going to use some epoxy sculpt. Now, I've got some from Aves, but I've also got some from Infini, and I like it because for some reason the Infini epoxy sculpt is really, it gets really soft. Now the other one does too, but it has a bit of a granular texture to it. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. In my opinion, it does. Now you might turn around and say, Phil, perhaps yours is dried out and you might want to get a fresh pot. I say nay. I have tried several pots, fresh pots, and I find it's a little granular, whereas the Infini is a little smoother. Just my opinion. That's all I got, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully get some epoxy sculpt and start laying it down on this face, getting into the contours and trying to do my darndest to create something dangerously close to this. That's the plan. And then I've got to do something about that hair. Well, I have got in my I've got in my stash of stuff, I've got this. It's, I don't even know what you'd call it, but it was a fur that I think I used it on my dewback on the horns, but I'm going to use this for his hair. So we're going to go from this to this. So I'm hoping. See, looks better already. Look, he looks better already. Come on, he looks better already. No, so I'm hoping to go that these two small additions to this will really make it pop and give us some drama. But either way, we're going to have a lot of fun with this. So let's take a look at the parts in this box before we get going here. You get basically your diorama, right? Which is this kind of the front stoop of this house. So there's quite a lot. Here's his body. He's in his classic jumpsuit. So we should be fine with this. Of course, the seams are up the side, so we've got some seam work to do, but I think we'll be okay. We should be able to sort out those seams, so that'll be good. Here's the whole body. This is the base of the diorama. Now we've got these leaves here that are cut into the base. Perhaps we can do a little better. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe we can find some other leaves or debris to add to this, just to give it a little more flavor. But we can certainly paint those. And then, of course, here on the floor, you've got this bag of candy, right? Here's the bag of candy that is supposed to have tumbled out and been left on the floor, which, you know, I think we can work with that. And of course, You've got this really weird clown mask that was on, I think, the kid. He drops it and runs when he sees him at the top. Here's his knife, so that'll be good. We've got the knife. And then we've got more of the diorama. More of the diorama. So this is sort of the whole scoop. You've got a pumpkin, very nice, which our little glowing light's going to go in. So the idea is that we take this bulb and we drill a hole in it somewhere, probably in the bottom, and in this will go, and that will glow. So that's kind of cool. So we've got a pumpkin to work with. A little more of the front step here, and then of course just his shoes. And here's a bit of his hand that fell off. Okay, so that is basically the parts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything off the trees, get it all cleaned up, and I think we'll do some assemblage, because there's no reason to not get these parts together and basically see what we've got. The only thing I'm going to leave off, of course, at the moment is the sculpt, because this piece right here, this neck piece, kind of it just slides. It slides off the back like that, and it'll be a lot easier for me to get this all glued up. And work with it. Just work with the basic. Work with the basic face. But I am going to leave it. I am going to put it all together, because you kind of have to get it all together, and it makes sense to get it all together. Okay. Well, I have already busted a locator pin, but I'm not. I'm not worried about that. We'll be fine. I'll get all this glued up. And then what we'll do is we'll come back when I'm ready to tackle this face, because that to me is the whole build. I'll do some sub assemblies as well, but this is it. If I can't get this right, I think this kit is just dead on arrival. No pun intended, but I think it is. Okay, so glad you're with me. Very excited to be building Michael. I'm really hoping that I can pull this off. This is really exciting for me on a couple of levels, because it's really, these are skills that I've learned over the last couple of years that I'm going to be applying to this now. And this face is such that I think I can do some justice with it, because it requires it to be a little grotesque, and that's fun. Okay. So come back in a second when we've advanced the ball, as my wonderful mother used to say, bless her heart. Okay, we'll be back in just a sec. Having worked in the entertainment business for 38 years, you do once in a while have an opportunity to see some practical things being done, especially in construction. And one of the things that I am very blessed for is some of the relationships that I had over the years. And one of them was with an awesome human being. His name was Jerry Fitzpatrick. He was a construction coordinator. He started life out as an actor, believe it or not. But he ended up as a construction coordinator, and he did a lot of Spielberg's movies and a couple of Zemeckis movies as well. And I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to have been able to call him a friend. And he worked for me on Sequest, amongst other projects. And he was a terrifically talented carpenter and just an all-round tradesman. And of course, all the departments under him that worked with him and my production designers did an awful lot to obviously create these wonderful sets. But one of the things I always found fascinating, and I never forgot, was the texture that was applied to surfaces to create dimension, so that they didn't look just flat. And so oftentimes things like caulking and thick acrylic paints and plasters and those sorts of things were applied to Luan surfaces. Luan often used to sheet set walls before other elements were added to them. And so you were able to get these wonderful effects. And so that's what I'm doing on portions of this diorama. So I want to talk quickly about that. We've used this product before. There's many different ways to do this. So again, what I'm sharing with you is my method. It is not the it's not the tried and true method. It's not the you have to use this method. It's my method. There's so many other wonderful ways to do this. I mean, you could just go down to your local hardware store and oftentimes pay a lot less for a lot more. One of the things I have found, though, is when you do that, sometimes you end up with large amounts of things you don't really need, and so there is an advantage to the scale of some of the craft versions of these things. But anyway, this is a product that I use. Of course, it'd be helpful. There it is. It's a product that I use, and it's from Testers, which I believe is now, it's owned by Rust-Oleum now. So everything is kind of in this world. But it's called Dimensional Craft Paste. And it's acrylic, it's water-based. It dries relatively fast. You can't use it on fabrics, but it's great. It's a great product because I like the versatility of it. You can use it to make mud with. You can use it to add all kinds of textures to every one of your models. But what it does here, and this is dried, and I've been brushing it on here. It does a myriad of things. One, it can hide really bad seams, but it can also help add some dimension to your surfaces. Now, I did get a chance to look at a few other builds on channels where they just hit this, you airbrush this with, maybe you go all black and then you hit it with a white and some other shades, and you can do all kinds of things. You can streak these, you can put washes on these, you can do all kinds of things. But what I'm doing is I'm adding texture, and you can see here's the before, which is just this sort of flat surface with, and you can see the seam line here, which I've not really worked on an awful lot. And here's the after, and this is adding that textured surface, and you can see that the seam line has basically disappeared. And so I'm going to be hitting this with some white. I'm actually going to use a white primer, and then I'm going to use some off-whites and some washes, because I do want this to look like an aged white, but I like the notion that this exterior banister has seen better days. And I've talked about this before. Often when you go down very small suburban streets and you observe things, you look at the world around you, you'll notice that people oftentimes don't bother to sand these surfaces down. They just paint over them and over them and over them. And over the years, you've seen this, you get this sort of build-up that is not sanded down, it's just painted over, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm doing it, again, I'm doing it for visual interest, for dimensionality, and I think it works. So I've got one more of these to do, which I'll do. It's very simple to apply. You just apply it with a brush. So I'm going to do that. You can see it's a paste, really. That's what it is. It has no odor, but it's a paste. So it really is a sort of creamy, I would say it's a sort of creamy version of a caulking, but it's a lot creamier. It's not as stiff, but I don't necessarily think that matters. You could actually take some regular acrylic caulking in white, put it in a little tray with a little more water, and probably get this. I don't remember what I paid for this, but if I did know, I wouldn't tell you because I don't want to be laughed at. It's probably a few bucks more than I should if I went the other way. But hey, do not mock the afflicted. Okay, so let's take a look at what I'm doing here, which is I'm just sort of taking this wonderful stuff and on it goes. And you know, at first you just sort of brush it. I try to stay with the grain, obviously, because you imagine, well, that's the way someone would try to paint a surface. Unless you got somebody who really was lazy. Now the nice thing about this is as it starts to dry, it starts to tack up. You can feel it on your brush. You can feel it tacking up, and that's a good thing because then you can play with it. Now here you can see that seam line. I put the dimensional paste on. Don't you love the fact they call it dimensional paste? Isn't that wonderful that they came up with a name for it? But it's great. It works. It works for me. So I don't know. Would I ever buy it again once this all runs out? You know, I don't know. I happen to be in a Michaels, I think, and they were getting rid of a lot of their paints and things. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this was being phased out. Because a lot of times these Michaels, I don't know in your town, but in my town, or at least up in Oregon, it's kind of sad, they built Hobby Lobbies right next to Michaels. And of course, it's put Michaels in a very difficult position because now they've got competition. And if you ask the employees, bless their hearts, they'll say to you, well, you know, we're not carrying what they're carrying. Well, no, of course not. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But you can see this does a really nice job. And you get a really nice effect. So I'm really happy with that. And so I'm gonna continue to put this on and get this all cleaned up, and then I'm gonna let this dry, and then we'll be able to look at painting this, because I'm gonna weather and paint these as well. And I may put a little bit of this texture on the pumpkin as well. And so it works, you know, it'll work on the pumpkin surface as well. I think it'll actually work quite well on the pumpkin surface. So I'm gonna continue to do that. Get this all painted and then dry, and then in the next section I'm going to set up for the pièce de la résistance, which is I'm going to start work on Michael's face. And this is the bit that I'm super excited about because I have a plan, and we'll go through it, and we'll start to build up this face, because what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and mimic this. And if you and we'll go through a bunch of these photos in just a minute when I get there, but I want to sort of talk about some of the elements. Specifically, one you can see in this particular photo is how protruded the mask is from the face, leaving that wonderful kind of eerie blackness. And you know, that sort of deliberate feeling that you've got a mask on. No, there was no attempt to hide that. It actually added to the creep factor. So we're going to be looking at that for sure. Okay, so let me continue to put on my dimensional paste, and then we'll come back and we'll dive into the face sculpt, which I'm really excited about, because unless this goes completely pear-shaped, I think I can add. I really think I can add value to this. Okay, so come back into the next segment. Okay, so this is the moment in time that I am really excited about, because I don't know, my confidence level is higher than normal, because I think we can make a huge difference here. Okay, so the plan is to actually try to not accurize the mask, but give it more dimension, a little more of a creep factor, because this is what we're dealing with now. And I've not bothered to do any seam work because this is all going to disappear. But not very scary. Not very scary. Now, curiously enough, obviously makeup, lighting, and everything else make a huge difference. This is a believe it or not, this is a an image of there's an awful lot of them out there. I'm not going to list them, but there's an awful lot of 1/6 and 1/8 scale models or of Michael. This is one of them, but I really liked it, and this is the shot that I think really impressed me, because when you look at the mask, there's two things that strike me. One is the deliberate sort of oversizing of it. You can see that at the neckline. And I like that an awful lot. There's also a, I don't know if it's a scar or what, but we're going to recreate it on the right side. Well, it's his left, our right. You can see this sort of scar kind of thing coming down the face, and that does appear in the film, so that's pretty accurate. But the one thing that pops out to you is the jaw lines. If you look at the cheeks, obviously where the nose is quite elongated and a little thinner. The cheeks are quite deliberate. There's a little bit of redness on the lip, which I find fascinating. And then you've got these deep holes. Now, obviously, the eye holes were made a lot wider. But what this did was, in cutting open the holes, it added this creep factor. Now, you can see in this particular case, the eyes behind it are blackened. To hide them, because if you may or may not recall, in the film, the original film, there's all that conversation about his eyes, how black the eyes were. They were just pure evil. There was nothing in the eyes, and it kind of sits with you, and it puts the hair in the back of my neck up. So I love that, and that's what we're looking at here. But going back to this for a second and then sort of continuing on in my research, here's a mask that I also thought was very helpful. Now, this mask, as you can see, does not have that scarring on the side. This is just one of those masks you can buy. But what it does help with is the sort of the slightly over the thickness around the eye holes now, and the inconsistency of them, and the fact that the eyebrows themselves will white it out. And then there's the hair. The hair is pretty matted, and I like that. There's a creep factor to that. So that to me was interesting. And again, the jaws themselves give you that sort of that dimension. Here's another version of it, but this one has the scarring, and you can see that the eye sockets are slightly different. The cheek and jowls are definitely different. But again, the hair, the matted hair, and this is sort of brownish hair, giving you that creepy look. Here's another view of the side of it, because I'm going to try and mimic that scarring. And there's the clown we're going to be adding later. But I want to go back to this particular one, because I think that it's the one that I'm most interested in. But curiously, the eyebrows on this one are not whited out. And like with everything else, it's film stock, it's lighting, it's all kinds of things. So the original mask, there's supposed to be one floating around. I have seen photos of what I thought, well, what you're led to believe is the original mask, but it's obviously broken down and deteriorated quite a bit over the years. But anyway, so the plan here is to use, I'm going to be using the Infinity version, of the epoxy putty, and it comes in this these little boxes. Now there's there's our famous there's Magic Sculpt, there's Abe's epoxy sculpt. There's a myriad of different versions of this out there. This is the one I like to use. I find it to be a little less grainy and really super soft, which is what I need to help work with this, because I am not a sculptor. I don't claim to be a sculptor, but the reason why I'm not afraid to tackle this is because I've got, first of all, I don't have a huge amount of surface, and I can do this slowly. I can take little dabs of my putty, apply it, and by wetting it down, I can seamlessly put it all together, and I can follow some of these contours, and I'm just accentuating them. And the idea here is to end up with something that looks a little creepier than that. Now, I don't mean to go off bashing this thing, but come on, is it not the whole kind of, it's the center of this thing, you know? It's what you look at. It's that face. You're drawn to that face. Everything else on this diorama, we're going to do great stuff with. You know, we're going to add our own leaves, and we're going to add some grass, and we're obviously texturizing. We're going to have our pumpkin glow. But if we don't get that face right, I think it's a bust. That's my opinion, and that's the whole reason for doing this, and also because it's a Halloween build. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get set up here, get some of this mixed together, because you don't need to see me cut this open, take equal parts, make it together, get it into a creamy consistency. We'll come back when I'm ready to start. Okay, just give me a minute to prep here. Progress. I love progress. Well, so as you know, I thought in the last segment that I was going to take some Infinity epoxy putty, and I was going to carefully build out the mask over the headpiece that it comes with the kit. I was working on it, and I came to the conclusion that I was never going to get it perfect. I was never going to get it where I wanted. Now, I think it's a great technique for later masks. If you want to do the really deteriorated mask from later films, I think it's a great way to go. I think you can get a really dramatic result. But for that first mask, it was, it was quite clean. It wasn't, other than the holes around the eyes were cut out and the whole thing was sprayed white. That was it. That was the extent of the mask. So I think it was really one of those things where I struggled with it, and I thought, I do not like what I have. I'm not happy with where it's going, but I know I need to improve. So I reached out to my dear friend Jeff Fink, who sent me a file. I also found another couple of files online of sculpts of the face of Michael Myers. So I thought to myself, let's print a couple and see what we get. Well, we have a result. I think we have a result. So I've got something that I'm pretty happy with. Now, as I'm recording this, the good Jeff Fink is working on his version of it, so I can print that tonight, and I can shift gears very quickly. But I did want to show you the one that I printed, because I think it's quite good. So let me show you. Well, first let me do this. Let me show you the mask that I was working towards. This was the sort of a version of this, right? And there's a couple of versions of this mask. There's that one too, although I don't know. You know, it's hard to know because we weren't there in 78, so we don't know. But there's a couple of these masks. But I do think this print is pretty darn close. Now I am going to add the hair because I can do a good job with the hair. I was testing the hair, and I'm really happy with that result. So I'm actually going to add the hair myself because I think that'll add quite a bit of drama to this. But this is the sculpt. So now it's not incredibly easy to see, but what I love is let me I can use this. The wonderful depth in the eyes here. So the sunken part, they got that perfect. So you can sell the idea that there's flesh back there, and then of course we'll put in the black eyes. So I think that'll be terrific. The features are quite correct. The lips are quite correct. And here in the shadow is this wonderful jowline on the jaw under the cheek here. And that is also correct. I've added this little element here, this kind of scarring, or I don't know what it was, but it was on the original. It was on the original mask. It could have been where it ripped. I don't know, but it was on the original mask. So I've added that. And on the other side, there is a jawline as well. Although this one isn't as pronounced on this print, I'm going to actually pronounce it even more when I go to paint this. And then of course there's some wonderful added elements here along the neckline just to give it some, just to give it some depth and some texture. And then of course there's the frown lines here, and they all look correct as well. Now what I've done is I have used my surface primer, my German dark yellow. Here it is. This is what I've used as my primer, my sort of finish primer. And I'm priming everything this way. And the reason why I'm doing that is because the mask is white, but it's going to have some sort of depth to it. So before I add the white to it, I'm going to spray on some shadows, and then I'll hit it with the white, and that should be pretty good. I'm using it on all the other surfaces as well, including his jacket here, only because I feel like the effect is going to be a little more correct, as opposed to just hitting this with black and then hitting it with white, or hitting it with a black wash afterwards. I don't think that's correct. I think it's this is going to give me tonally a much better effect. So I have hit it with the German gray, and that's my base coat. It's coming along really very well. I'm really liking the effect of the dimensional craft paste on these elements. I think that's really added a nice depth to this. So I'm happy with those. I've just hit everything with it really, and I've added that paste to this element as well. And so when I hit this with the primer, that's going to also give me that lovely texture. I've put it on all the surfaces. So that's all working really well. I've started working on the actual base itself, and I'm happy with where this is going. So I've added some concrete texture to the base here. There it is, and I've added the lawn, which I'll work on, but it's a lot more. I think it's a lot more correct than the actual base. Now, what I've got is, and interestingly enough, the Michael Myers house had bushes in front of it. There's no bushes here. You get this background like this, which sort of it sits here like this, and then you've got this step that goes up, and this is supposed to be the Michael Myers house, but in the film, it's actually grass in front and a pathway, and then of course you've got some bushes here. So you know, you can go to town however you want to do it. I think the most important thing is that you give it some depth. And now, don't get me wrong, there is absolutely nothing wrong with building this out of the box. Some purists like to do that, and I say fine. You perfectly that's perfectly acceptable and very cool, and you'll get a nice model. But I do think sometimes, you know, when you get into the hobby a little more and you feel like, I could do this, I could do that, you want to play. And I think it's gonna make a difference to this model. I've also found online, and I'm using, curiously enough, even though this says it's 1/8 scale, I am using some dollhouse stuff, and I've got some wonderful greenery here that I've picked up from a store on Etsy, and it's got these wonderful little vine elements, and so I think, you know, it might be fun to actually add some of these elements to the to the banisters here. Boy, I can't speak. I'm sorry. To the banisters, because I think that again, you know, that'll add some depth to it. I'm going to use the I'm going to use the wooden platforms that are on here. I'm not going to add another level to it. Some people are using popsicle sticks. Some people are adding some balsa wood tops to it. I don't think there's any need. The other reason why I don't think there's any need is because if you look at the side here, anything you put on top is not going to work with this element, which is already in here. So I think we're going to go with this. Now, what we are going to do though is where these leaves are, I have got some leaves on order, and what I'll do is I will paint those in, but I'm going to add some leaves around that just to kind of make it disappear, and I'll put some on the grass because, you know, they look fine, but it just looks weird. I don't know, it's hard to explain. And I found this little bag of candy. This is fun. So I've got candy, so when I get the bag here and we put the bag in place, and that keys in sort of like here, it's fallen here. I think the kid just dropped his bag of candy and took off. So he left his bag of candy there, and he left his mask, which I've got over there. And so I think this candy, with this candy just sort of everywhere, will add a nice element to that. So that's pretty good. And we're going gangbusters here. I'm really happy with this sculpt. So the next thing for me to do here now is to get his I think I'm going to get his face taken care of, and then I'll start putting in his hair. You could do it the other way around. It doesn't really matter. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But I'm very happy with the sculpt, and I think it's going to make a huge difference. So things are coming together. I do have to work a little bit on the pumpkin, but I'll do that. You know, it needs to be textured and everything else. But this is coming along. Now, obviously, my banisters, everything's going to go white. So don't worry. This is a primer. Nobody panic. But I think we're getting there. I'm a little bummed about these hands. They actually feel like they've got gloves on them, but they don't. They're just big, sort of fat hands. And Michael Myers' hands were a lot more delicate than this. So if you're talented, you can really, and you could sculpt some fingers, some hands. You could really go to town on these hands and do something pretty special. But I think at the end of the day, we'll be okay. We'll be okay. So that's it. Okay, everything is coming together. I'm going to put some color on here, and and I'll start working on the face sculpt itself. And so let's look at the progression in the next segment. Okay. Quick update. Otherwise, I just carry on and forget to turn the camera and show you the build. But it's going well. It's going well. I'm a big lover of these Flory washes from florymodels.co.uk. I haven't purchased anything in a long time from Flory. I don't know if they still make these. They might not. But they were clay based, and they're really super easy to use, and just such a clever product. I used to like their sanding sticks as well, but I don't think they make those anymore either. Anyway, this is their grime. They call it grime. It's had a matte coat on it. All I need to do now is just get this brushed all over this model, and actually just get it brushed all over the jumpsuit. I've been putting washes and things on here. You can see where I am with this. That's not very helpful. You can see where I am with this, and you know what? One of the challenges I always feel you face with things like this is the sort of the plastic nature of it, and getting that plastic, that sort of plastic feel off of it, and it's really hard to do that. Now, for those of you who have never done this before, don't panic. Most of it comes off, gets washed off, but you get it in all the nooks and crannies, and then you just wipe off what you want. Most of it comes off, obviously. He was, in the first movie, he's heading to Haddonfield, and Donald Pleasance finds this car and finds the white the white linens. I don't know what they were, you know, sort of the psych ward clothing. He finds it by this car. What he doesn't see is the dead guy in the bushes, but I assume this is the dead guy's jumpsuit. That's the assumption we all make. So we're going to get this nice and grimy. It was relatively clean, I know, in the first film, but the problem is relatively clean on a model like this doesn't help. So I feel like you really need to sort of exaggerate the washes and everything else to really get anything worthwhile. So that's what I do anyway. Okay, so I've got a nice layer of this on. We'll let this dry. It's all water based, so no issues there. And we'll let that dry. I'm going to set that aside here. Get it out the way and just let that dry. I've been working on the hands. I've been putting I put several washes on the hands. I put some veins on the hands. Unfortunately, these hands are they're a little chunky, but this is going to work really well. This wash is doing it's doing a nice job. It's doing its job. So I'm happy with that. So that's coming along. So I've got the hands I'm working on. Oh, I just noticed I missed a whole bunch on the side here. You got to be so not careful, but you've got to pay attention, because it's really easy to miss stuff. And when you miss something, it looks really tacky. So I'm using these flesh washes quick shade from Army Painter. I love them. I highly recommend them. They're really fun to use and they work really well, and they wash up with water. Oh, you can't see a bloody thing. I'm sorry. It's terrible when I do that. You get this really nice, natural kind of feel. And then you can just clean it up with some water. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to get a little Q-tip and clean it up, clean up the parts where it was a little too heavy with some water. And that comes right off. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to be working on this pumpkin today. We'll look at that. And the next thing I want to conquer is Michael's hair, because that doesn't look good. I need to get something a little more akin to this. Like this is what I'm sort of looking at. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm using this faux fur as hair. I'm going to mat it down, and then it'll get lightly sprayed with an airbrush once it's all down and dry. The effect is pretty good. Here's a test of what it looks like. You can see it. I just did a quick test, but it works really well, and I'm happy with that. It's going to look really good. It's quite effective. So that's good. So I'm gonna start on that. I don't want to do it on camera. I apologize, but I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to get some regular Elmer's PVA glue watered down, and I'm going to slowly start layering this down until I get the effect that I want. Let that dry, and then we can trim it, and then I can brush it, go a little darker with it. It should look really good. And then I've got to get a wash on this face. I'm not sure what I'm going to use yet, but I'm going to get a wash on here. So we'll figure that out. But he's looking sufficiently gruesome. I've got a little touch up to do on the eye, which we'll do. That's no problem. But yeah, this was a great print. I was thrilled I was able to do that. So okay, I'm gonna keep working here, and we'll come back and we'll take a look at Michael's face once I've got the hair on it. Okay, stick around. Right, he's creeping me out. It's coming along really well. It's the wrong color, but we'll get that fixed. But what I wanted to show you was the sort of creepy mattiness of it, and how much difference this makes to then just trying to paint hair on plastic. I just think it just makes it come alive. So I'm going to let this set up and dry, and then we can start working on finishing touches, cleaning up the eyes, and getting this ready to install on its head. But I think you'll agree that that is definitely starting to look like that, and that's a good thing. So I wanted to show you my progress. I'm very, very happy. So it's just water and glue and some of this fake hair. You know, you can pick it up at I picked mine up at Michael's, but you can get this anywhere, and it's great for all kinds of uses. And you wet it down, and then you just add a little PVA glue and some water to it and let it set up, and you're golden. So pretty happy with this. So I'm going to let this set up and dry, and then we'll carry on. I like the Tamiya gloss red with a little bit of the Citadel bloodletter glaze for blood. It's pretty good. You know, it keeps that sort of that wet look to it, but I'll go over it probably with a little bit of the with the gloss just to punch it. I don't want to do too much, but I'm pretty happy with where we are now with his jumpsuit. It's sufficiently weathered and looking pretty good. It's got a little bit of a shine on it, so I am now going to hit it with just a little bit of matte, just to kill some of that shine. It's where it's just where some of the flat washed off when I you know, because it's water based, right? So it just washed off when I was taking down some of the dirt and grime. And I'm going to leave his shoes relatively clean. I might put a little bit of mud on the bottom of them, a little bit of grime perhaps, just, you know, because obviously who knows where he's been walking. But pretty happy with him. He's looking really good. So you know, for what it is, I think it's a pretty nice rendition. And of course, I've been working on the diorama, as it were, if you can call it a diorama. No, it's a diorama. I've been cleaning that up, and that's looking pretty good. So I'm happy with that. And it's sufficiently weathered and looking pretty good. I may put some vines on here just to kind of add a little dimension to it. Why not? You know, wouldn't hurt. I've got to put the mask in. I've got to paint that now. I'm gonna do that now. The mask. So I just probably just some hand painting, really, just sufficiently creepy. But I'm really happy with it, and he'll look pretty good. Here, let me see if I can get him to stand. Yeah, he doesn't stand very well, but he's good. He's good. Pretty happy. The mask will go down, and I think she'll be dangerously close. I've been working on the face. Oh, that's good, isn't it? That's a nice background for this. So now I'm going to work on. It's dry enough that I can now get the brown in his head, because he's looking a little too orange. And then I'll just trim off the hairs in the back, which is no problem, really. It's very easy to do, and but he's looking sufficiently ratty, and I like that. And don't forget, this isn't his real hair. This is the mask, right? So who knows? I don't even want to know where this mask has been. But anyway, so let me get. I'll get the hair on that. And I'm going to do just a little more. I've been doing a little bit of aging to the mask, so it's got some, you know, it's got enough punch to it. The mask was pretty monotone, which made it kind of creepy. But yeah, I'm really happy with him. All right, so let me darken down his hair, and see what else we need to do just to touch up the face. But I don't think we need to do too much. I mean, here's me, and here's the mask I went for. So I think if I just get that if I just get that color down, we'll take another look, and then you'll be the judge, right? All right, so let me get that on, and we'll take a look at that. There it is. And I think that the hair makes a hell of a difference to this mask. So much better than just trying to paint fake hair. I mean, you can do it, and it works to a certain extent, but this is really, I think, a step up, and I'm thrilled I did it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is get this head installed on the body, get Michael installed onto the stairs, get a little more texture on my pumpkin. I'll show you. I've started working on my pumpkin. It's looking pretty good. Here's my pumpkin, but I just want to put a little texture on it. It's a little flat, so I'm gonna just do a little more work on that, because why not, right? And boy, I see light at the end of this tunnel. I really do. I'm pretty excited to show you the finished piece and see what you think. Okay, so I think what we'll do is I'll finish up my pumpkin. I'll get everything situated. I'll get my light installed, and we'll do a final reveal on this Halloween build. Okay, stick around. Well, if you're not in the dark, what's the point of putting lights in your kit? We can see that. Now, I have to say, this is the part that I don't know. I have a difficult time with it, because it's very difficult for me to then get some close-ups for you and show you what's going on. But I'm pretty chuffed about this kit. I have to say, I put a lot of work into getting it to where it is. Lots of shading and shadowing on Michael. Obviously, a really nice 3D sculpt. And for the head, the hair, I added to give it that sort of punch. I toned everything down. I added textures to all the surfaces, as we know. And I'm really happy. I added a little bit of extra candy. Sadly, my winter leaves did not show up, but hopefully they will in the next couple of days. I can put them in, and then I'll take some pictures and we can post those on Instagram. But I hope, well, that doesn't help, does it? I hope you'll agree that this is looking really, really good. That's the worst angle on the planet. This is the one you're supposed to be looking at. There it is, with the pumpkin glowing and in all of its glory. I spent about a week on this model, and it's great fun to build. It really is, and you can do all kinds of things to it. I've seen guys who ultimately added the door, added windows, changed the angle. There's all sorts of things you can do. But I think that, to have this in my collection, I'm thrilled to have it. So there it is. It's the Mobius Halloween kit. Very readily available, and it's not a difficult build. It's a fun build, and if you can get yourself a new head sculpt, you'll be better for it, because I just think it will really improve the quality of your build, and you'll end up with something that looks dangerously close to I'd say this. So with the right lighting, I can see if I can accomplish that. Who knows? Anyway, thrilled to do it. Thank you for coming along on this journey with me. I really appreciate it. I hope everybody has a healthy and happy Halloween when we get there. And as always, please, I wish all of you be safe, be well, build something. Come on, build something. And I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.